Hey, and welcome everyone. I'm so excited to present to you this next guest that I have here today. His name is Chaz Wolfe, and he is actually here from Kansas City. I don't know,
That's right.
were you born in Kansas City?
Born in Columbia, Missouri, a couple hours east of here.
Okay. So he has achieved a lot of things that he'll be sharing. But one thing, when I got to know him, I actually don't remember completely first time we get to know one another.
Okay.
But he had this like, I recognize he had this like I can do anything mindset, and I just saw him moving forward. So it was something that I really, really got attracted to. So please just welcome here,
Yeah,
and please just share a little bit about your background.
absolutely. Well, first off, Vibeke, thank you for having me. It's an absolute pleasure getting to know you and Peter has been amazing. And I don't necessarily remember the first time we met either, but I do remember when I met Peter and we began that initial conversation. And I knew that we would be connected for a long time based on just the level of business that we were talking about. So it's been a pleasure getting to know you guys. But for me, I've got a background. I'm a serial entrepreneur in multiple industries. I've been anywhere from the top sales guy in an organization of multiple, a couple thousands of sales reps, all the way to leading an entire sales organization for big names like Grant Cardone and Frank Kern. I've built businesses of my own since the age of 24. Currently, we have about 50 employees or so, then about 8 companies in about 3 states. So we're a
Wow.
little bit all over the place, but I don't want to paint a picture of like super easy or like that has been smooth sailing. I was raised by a single mom. And so that process of watching her work extremely hard,
Yeah.
sometimes 2 and 3 jobs, really built into me this kind of what you said, this I can do anything or never quit, fight till the end, do everything with excellence type of mentality. And so I've on a mission now really to be able to pour that back out with other sales professionals, other entrepreneurs that I'm working with to take that same bulletproof mentality and be able to implement systems and create sales strategies and build teams and all kinds of fun stuff that I'm doing in business nowadays that helped me as I've grown my businesses. So hopefully that gives
Wow.
you a little bit of my background.
Wow. I mean, that's pretty amazing. And I mean, many of you probably know a family or so on that come from a single mom's family, and to become like a serial entrepreneur. I mean, how did you do that? Like, how did you just
Yeah.
jump into that?
Yeah. Well, so just like you said, you just jump in. That seems crazy. And it is. And there's a level of crazy that if you're listening to this and you're on Vibeka's channel anyway, I already know that you have a level of thinking about you that is creative, or that you're searching for more, or that you want to fulfill your potential, or you want to be able to reach the top of whatever mountain you're involved in, or maybe multiple mountains. And so that level of crazy, you may not have thought of it like that, but it's absolutely in there. Some people might see it as like maybe like a potential for greatness. That might be a little bit more PC way to say it.
Yeah.
But for me, I just leveled up with myself, and it's okay that I've got a little crazy in me. So to answer your actual question, how did you just jump in? Well, I wanted more, just like I just described. I wanted to be able to go somewhere in life. I wanted to be able to fulfill my potential. That starts with kind of knowing who you are, knowing who the Lord made you to be, right? So for me, knowing that I'm a son, being confident in my sonship, being confident in my talents, right? And so having those things secure, then you can move forward in whatever mountain it is. And to the initial question of how do you jump in, you take those things that you're solid about and you just jump in.
Yeah. But it's not that easy for everyone, because you say level up.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people will say, well, if God calling me, then it will happen.
Yep.
Like they have this faith that God will do it. And it's like sometimes I think maybe almost this like lottery mentality that will
Sure.
just
Yeah.
come.
Yeah.
So when you say like level up, like what does
Mm.
that mean?
Yeah. So I think there's a distinction that needs to be made here. And you said that there's a group of people in the church that have a level of faith that the Lord's going to do it for them. And I think that everyone in the church should have that level of faith. And I think that there's a group of people in the church that don't have that and they're missing that, right? So we gotta help that group of people level up in their ability to have faith, right? But what you're talking about is the group of people that have a faith, but they're hiding in what they're calling faith. It's actually not faith. They're hiding behind faith, but it's actually an excuse not to take action. And so it's kind of a delicate area, right? Because I don't want to be, my wife and I were having this conversation the other night about what it means to be self-made. And to her, it was like this pretty offensive word or combination of words. And because she sees it as like not being made with what the Lord has given you, right? So I receive that self-made as you started with nothing, and like I didn't inherit anything. So for me, I didn't inherit millions or anything for that matter. Okay, I've literally been given nothing. So there's been people along the way that I have asked for help. Sometimes I get a little bit of help, sometimes I don't, but there's nothing that's just been like plopped in my lap. So for me, self-made means taking the bits that I had that were me, partnering with the Lord and making something happen. So I think we have to talk about that level first. Okay, so what are you believing in? What is your faith, right? And so, well, that person that you're referring to, that their faith is in the Lord making a move on their behalf. And what I have realized for me as a son, that I have talents. Now, my talents are going to be different than yours. They're going to be different than yours, right? So to a degree, we have to see it from the father's perspective. So I'm a father, right? You're a mother. If you're a mother or a father, then you can relate to what I'm saying. You look at your children and you're building them up, right? And I'm guiding them. I'm making decisions for them, but ideally I'm teaching them through the process, right? So I'm laying groundwork for my daughters and my son now to be able to make good decisions. Eventually, though, what I really, really want as a father is for them to make their own choices and then for them to reflect the things that I've taught them. And they may not be exactly what I would choose, but it's their choice, but with a reflection of what I taught them so that I can be proud of them. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
So this person, going back to this person that we're talking about, who has this amazing amount of faith in God, who's going to move on their behalf. First off, we can never sit and say like that's not the way to go, because I'm absolutely believing the Lord to move mightily in my businesses. My daughters and I pray every night. My son, when he gets old enough, he'll join us. We talk about our prosperity in our business, our prosperity in our relationships, not just prosperity of money, but resource and all this, right? But this person has to realize that it's not going to just happen. The lotto mentality that you just described, right? There is a level of action that the father, going back to the example, is looking upon you, looking upon me, and going, I've taught you these things. I've given you these things. I've grown you up in these things. What do you want to do? Or what's your decision? How are you going to act in these moments? And it's not so much of him thinking back of like, well, it's either A or B, and you're either going to pick my way or the other way. No, no, no. That's not a good father. A good father respects the son's decision or the daughter's decision, but in the son and daughter's decision making or action taking steps, they're reflecting back on what the father taught them. That's the impact in that moment of going, okay, the faith that I have is, okay, the Lord's taught me this, ABC, right? And so with that knowledge, with the story that he's given me, the history, the things that he's walked me through, whether it be prophetic words or relationships that you've been given, or whether it be things that have happened for you or not happened for you, they're all part of your story. You lean upon those things and you go, okay, how do I make a decision and take action forward, knowing these things about what the Father has given me? Sitting and waiting only, for me, has never been the answer. There are times when we wait. It's hard for me to wait, hard for you to wait. You can agree. Maybe you're in that place. Maybe you're a really good waiter, okay? And that's fine. My challenge to you would be make sure you're not hiding in the waiting, because really, if you're really, really honest with yourself, it probably comes down to your hesitation to take action. Your hesitation of, am I good enough to go do X, Y, and Z? Do I have the skill sets? Really, it's probably inefficiencies in you, looking at you, not believing what the Lord has already given you, to go take action or to go step out in faith in your action, because the Lord has built you up in a way,
Yeah.
or in a partial way, for you to take that little bit of action. And guess what? You're going to grow in the middle of it. Like she said at the beginning, how do you jump in? You just jump in. You learn. Look, when you jump off the diving board, you jump off the end of the pool, guess what? Between the time from when your feet leave the edge to the time you hit the water is this really big gap of time. It looks like a half of a second, but it's such a big part of our life, as you could probably agree. And man, I learned so much in the falling, right?
Yeah.
So hopefully that was a really long-winded answer, but hopefully there's some nuggets in there.
I mean, there's just so many gold nuggets in that answer, because I've seen things in the church and I've seen things outside of the church, how people are working.
Sure.
And one thing that I do see that I think there's a lot of fear that hold people back. So just what you were saying, I mean, there were so many things that you were saying, but one thing thought that I thought of, like, this gives so much freedom to a lot of people to give themselves permission to just do it and just jump and just build a boat at sea. And because I think it's too much waiting.
Yeah.
Like, and people like you said, they were like, oh, it's God ways or my ways. Like, it's only A or B. Like, there's not like 5 choices in front of me. But yeah, so this thing about like make a decision, make it fast and just make it right.
Yeah.
Like all the things that you're saying, I just love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Nope, go ahead.
So let me ask you this. Tell me which mountain you know that you're called till.
Yeah. So I know I'm called to business, and there's some other ones in there too, some other interests that the Lord has for me. But my story is for sure about the marketplace, business, bringing resource into the house. And that for me, it's never been about the dollar, right? Or the accumulation of dollars. Although the accumulation of resource leads to other things. And so I've been keenly aware of that relationship. And I think that that's what my draw is to the mountain of business, is not so much the exploration of how far can we go or how big can we get or how far can I push the boundaries, although those things live inside of me for sure. It's more so of I see the resources needed to really impact. And the more I see the need in the world, you want to talk about world hunger, you want to talk about non-believers, I mean, anything, it requires resource. And so those people who are called to bringing food or the gospel or whatever, they need people like me in the business world trying to accumulate the storehouse, not for the sake of having things, although everybody desires nice things. It's more so for like, how do we play into the whole picture? How do the mountains work together?
Yeah.
And so I just know that I'm about the resource. I'm trying to pile the storehouse full for the kingdom.
That's good. And from you started, did you always know that? Or did you?
Good question.
Was that a growing journey?
Of course, it's a growing journey. I think that we all have maybe a moment or two, or maybe 3 or 4, where we're going against what maybe is natural or maybe the Lord has for us. And sometimes that's in the waiting too, right? So I found myself, you might have found yourself waiting, like we were just talking about. I found myself maybe making moves like not too soon or out of the will of God. Because again, I think that it's the Father's perspective, right? And the Father allows the child, or in this case, my children, to maybe go off a little bit of the beaten path to skin the knee and realize like, oh, I don't want to do that anymore. And then they come back and it's their own decisions, right? So for me, some of those skinning of the knee was, I actually initially thought I was going to be a youth minister. And so being raised single mom family, like I told you guys, my father figure was my youth minister. And so I think kind of just naturally it made sense. Like he was my father figure. You want to be like your dad when you're a boy, right? So I'll be a youth minister. I see him working and this makes perfect sense for me. So I'm in, a college to be a youth minister. And there's a time frame in that period where single mom household is struggling. And my mom has always done everything possible for me. It always wasn't glamour, right? And but not that it has to be. If you have kids right now, they're not going to remember any of that, okay? I remember the things that my mom sacrificed for me, right? So it's in those moments where I'm, in Bible college playing basketball, like doing me, right? That's what I thought. And I read a verse that hits me in the heart, and I realize that I need to go back home and take care of home, right? So it's in then now in this transition where it's like the Lord is talking to me about my skill sets and my leadership, and not only leading my little family of my mom and my sister possibly, but now leading other people and what that looks like in the business world, and my aspirations for more, and it's starting to kind of flourish up inside of me. So I get into sales and thinking I'm going to be maybe an insurance agent, maybe have my own State Farm agency, and I wanted to be the youngest one, and that has led into a big long story. But for me, that was that moment of the switching of I was going down this path, and somehow, some way, just my circumstances auto corrected me back to, hey, no, look, I've given you these skill sets over here on this mountain. It doesn't mean that I couldn't have been a good youth minister. I feel like I'm a good communicator. I feel like I really love, youth. Probably would have been really good at that.
Yeah.
But would that have only been me using 2 instead of 7 talents, or the reverse? Trying to use 7 when I only been given 2, because not one mountain is bigger than the other or better, right? But I feel like that was the story for me. Those were just some of the talents that I was given, and I would have been missing out on these talents I've been given over here on the business mountain. So auto correcting over to that has been putting me in alignment with maybe all that the Lord has for me.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's good. And do you feel there's other mountain waiting for you to climb?
That's a good question. I feel like I'm a very open-minded individual to the things that I know that I might be good at. So, I don't necessarily see myself as like a government official, although I'm never going to say I'm never going to be in government, because as soon as you say never, right? That's when the Lord breaks through and sends the lightning bolt. But of course, there are other areas that I want to be an impact in, whether that be me participating physically or pouring in resource from the house, like I described. But I'm all into figuring out how the business world and Christianity come together, for sure.
That's really good. So, as you know, on this show, we really want to inspire people to be leaders so
Yeah.
that they can influence and impact. And a lot of people are like, we shouldn't influence and impact, we shouldn't be the leaders. Um, what
Sure.
are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that so first off, going back to the realization that the Lord has given us each talents, right? And some to lead, some to be a part of the team, some to be creative thinkers, some to be logical thinkers, some to be parents, some to, I mean, like you could go down the list, right? So I feel like there's a level of participation really wherever you want to meet the Lord is probably the real answer, because he's going to meet you where you go, right? And or at least he's met me where I've gone, and sometimes whether it's off of what you thought was the path, like we just described, or whether you feel like you're right in the middle of what he's called you to be or do, I still want to dialogue with him and go with him there and have him meet me there. So what that means is that you're going to be deficient always. Right? And that's hard for leaders to, or maybe you're not a leader and you're like, well, I know I'm maybe deficient. And so that's why I don't. But for me, it's like a partnership with the Lord. Like maybe leadership isn't necessarily leading the group or standing on top of the mountain as the president of the United States or the richest man in the world in the business mountain or whatever. Maybe it's not the absolute top, but there are influences that we have, whether you're considered an like external leader or not. So I think what you're describing here is a mindset more than an external showing. It's a mindset of the Lord has given me talents, whether it's 1, 5, or 10. And it doesn't matter. The 5 or 10 is not better than the 1. It's about being obedient with what you've been given And part of what you've been given, if you're a believer, is to play a role in your place, whether that's in the school or in the government or in business, wherever the mountain is, for you to be excellent. Because to me, like, Christ is the identification of excellent, right? And so if I want to be like Jesus, then I want to be excellent. And if I'm excellent, it's going to naturally make me stand out.
Yeah.
It's going to naturally impact others because not everybody thinks like excellence. There are plenty of non-believers that have a spirit of excellence, right? But I don't know about you guys, but whether it be in your workplace or in your school place or in the government agency that you're part of or whatever mountain you're in, it has not been super difficult to stand out. I'm not talking about stand out like I'm a Christian and come talk to me about being saved. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about looking different. Yeah. I think that's the distinction that you're actually trying to make with the 7 mountains, which is, how do I, in my role with my talents, 1, 5, or 10, however big the impact is, there are people in my sphere, whether I'm physically leading them out loud in an external way or not, there are people in my sphere that I am obligated to. It's my duty to operate with excellence so that I stand out.
Good. Very good. So in this season for you,
yeah,
what do you feel God is doing?
For me.
For you personally.
Okay. Well, he's done a lot. So my story over the last 12 months has dramatically changed. And so I had mentioned at the beginning of this that I had been leading a large sales team for some pretty big names in the online space. And so I took that opportunity outside of my current businesses because I felt like it was an opportunity to grow, an opportunity to grow my mind, my thinking, to be around players in an industry that maybe are further down the road, or just to be able to think at a different level. And I also thought the opportunity would benefit my family and benefit future things that I wanted to do, right? And so that opportunity didn't work out long term like I thought it would. Anybody can relate to that? Right? Raise the hand on, I went all in on something. I felt like the Lord calling me to it. He was, right? The entire time I was in that place, I literally was reading. Okay, for all the parents out there, you guys have the storybook Bible. Okay, I've got the storybook Bible. I'll tell you what, right now, I have been wrecked by the storybook Bible. Have you at all? Have you experienced this?
I don't have the storybook Bible.
You have to, today, Amazon, order the storybook Bible. I'm reading the stories that I've read in the Bible for years and years and years. I'm reading them to my then 3-year-old and 5-year-old daughter. And I'm just wrecked because it's written for a 5-year-old. And guess what? Guess who gets impacted? I'm reading it. I'm over here just like, like I'm not a crier, but I'm over here going like I get choked up. That's my thing. Like, press it down. Like, don't show the cry, but I'm still like, got the Adam's apple getting swollen up. I'm trying to read the storybook Bible. So what my point is saying this is, I'm in this season and I'm feeling like I'm Joseph. I've been misplaced. I'm in this other country. I'm in Egypt. I'm in the wrong place. I'm in jail. How did I get here? Oh my gosh. But if you read the storybook Bible about the story about Joseph, it's like blah, blah, blah was happening to Joseph and it was real, real bad. But then the end sentence is, but the Lord was with him. And then da, 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 da was bad, but the Lord was with him. And da, 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 like all this stuff, he was just getting crushed. But the Lord was with him. So not that I feel like I've been crushed over the last year, but what I feel like is that I went on a journey completely. I literally moved my family across the country. That in itself, like, screw off the top of the head and open it up. And then now you can think differently. Moving across the country or to a different country literally makes you think differently. So from that all the way to the things that I learned, to the opportunity not working out, to then moving back, to starting 2 new businesses outside of my other businesses, the Lord is opening up the next chapter, or maybe not opening up. He's opened it up. He's ripped it open. My wife's for years been like, come on, Chaz, like, it's time. Get the story out. It's time for Chaz Wolfe to hit the scene. She sees me as this like, super famous person. And I'm like, what? I don't.
Every wife should do that.
Yeah, exactly. So, she spiffs me up and then, kicks me out the door and bolts it shut and then locks it, doesn't let me come back in until the day is done. I mean, not really, but you guys get what I'm saying. So that's what I feel like. I'm in this new thing. I've done a lot. And I feel like I've done a lot and it's been a kind of crazy and here and all over the place. And I've learned, but it's like the Lord's taking all that, honing it down and going, okay, are you ready for the next thing? Because all of this was preparation. It was training. It was boot camp. It was, but that's like everybody's story, right? It's all this stuff unto then this. And what I'm about to go through is going to be unto, that's just the way it rolls.
He's going to shoot you out now.
Yeah. I feel like I have been shot out.
That's what it's like. Yeah. He's in the jump, actually.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Using that exact same example, I'm in the jump. I haven't hit the water yet. I haven't gotten the experience of like the cannonball. Like, yeah, I did it, but I jumped and it was terrifying. And I'm mid jump. You're right.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. That's so good. Thanks for sharing.
Absolutely.
So there's a lot of followers that are younger, and there's a lot of people that they haven't started anything yet, and they're still pondering where to go, how do I figure it out? Sure. Maybe should I wait? Which is a very normal thought process for us. Like, I'm just going to wait because things will change. What is something that you could say to the younger generation, to people that are waiting, and is there something out there, and does my voice actually matters?
Yeah, that's a very loaded question. Thank you for such a hard one. What I would say, it's funny now thinking about that there's a younger generation, because I still kind of see myself as the young generation, but being a dad now, having multiple children, employees that are much, much younger than me. And so I get it. Like, I'm not the young guy anymore. So what I would say to my 18-year-old self, or my 14-year-old self, or my 25-year-old self, just 8 years ago, I would say that age doesn't matter. It's never mattered to me, and it shouldn't matter to you. And I think that the fear or the waiting often for the youth comes from being youthful, right? Not having much experience or not having a whole lot to draw from. Maybe you didn't have parents or parents that were supportive. And so you don't have much involvement with things or things to draw from to be able to give you confidence to move forward. Maybe you had parents that got you involved with everything, but it was them, not you. And so now it's like you're trying to figure out you. Really just depends on that scenario, right? So you're considering you, and the value of you is more than you'll ever know. And I know that that's really cliche, but looking back on it now, even just at 33 now, it's like, wow, if I knew genuinely how much the Lord loved me, like I do now, if I knew that at 18, I was a pretty purposeful 18-year-old, different than the normal 18-year-old. So I have to say that, but I also know that if I knew what I knew now on top of that, I would have been even more purposeful. I would have made even more moves. I would have been even more confident to just jump, right? Because you're never going to know what you know now until you get there. Mm-hmm. And the jump is part of getting there. So if you're thinking about waiting, you're wondering, does it matter for you to get involved? Does it really even matter for you to be a leader? Which mountain am I even involved with? Does it even matter for me to know? I would say 100% it matters. It not just for you. 100% it matters for you, for the relationship you have with the Lord. The Lord looks at you and he's like dialoguing with you, going like, I have this thing for you. I have it. And as much as you want, he's going to meet you there. I guarantee that. But it's also then for all of the other people, whether you're currently around them or you're going to be around them in the future, you being one of them, me being one of them for you, right? So we're in each other's spheres now, and your obligation of being the best version of you, or being, who you're called to be is actually a duty to me, because I can't be the best version of me unless I receive what I'm supposed to from you, and so forth and so on. Hopefully you guys are getting value today because I'm giving what I know to give you, so that way you can go be the best version of you. And then it's a trickle effect, right? Because that's how the Lord works. It's community. It's not just individual. This is not just about you. It is about you. It's not just about you, though. There are people who need your story. There are people who need you to lead in whatever sphere that is. And if you don't figure that out, if you don't jump off the side of the pool and get into the water, then not only are you not impacted, do you not get to grow with the Lord, but it's the others too that are waiting for that little tidbit of your story to push them on in their story.
That's good. That's really good. It's some great advice. So I'm going to post a link where you can connect with Chaz under this podcast. And I would just recommend to listen to it over and over again, because there's things that he say that some season I listen to them and in some season I don't.
Yep.
So it's so important to just learn and listen and implement. So thank you so much for coming here today.
It was an absolute pleasure.